Peace, y'all. Before we get started, I felt compelled to remind everyone to stay safe and stay abreast of all the atrocities happening around the world. The people of Palestine, Tigray, Congo, Sudan, Haiti, and countless other territories are currently fighting for their rights and their lives. And if you're choosing to take action, please take every precaution you can. Stay hydrated, stay in groups, cover your face, and please, more than anything, don't lose hope. I've been leaving links to organizations and resources at the bottom of every episode description for a good minute, so please go check those out for places to donate and to find ways to take action today. We're not free until all oppressed people in the States and abroad are free. Much love, stay strong, and stay dangerous. What's good, y'all? My name is Dylan Green, and this is Real Notes, a space dedicated to blurring the cultural and artistic lines between rap and film. I'm here to chop it up with everyone from rappers and producers to journalists and video directors about their relationship to movies and how, if at all, film inspires their craft. My guest this week is New York journalist, filmmaker, and creator of Hoodwear Diaries, Aishamanne. We spoke about season 3 of FX's The Bear, Yorgos Lanthimos' Kinds of Kindness, the allure of horror movies, being inspired to direct by Barry Jenkins' Moonlight and Childish Gambino's Awaken My Love, the intersection of film, hip-hop, and fashion, how black cultural influence will outlast us all, and the creative process behind and gradual expansion of our YouTube channel and Instagram pages. Come fuck with us. What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to Real Notes. It's summertime. The weather finally fucking broke. It's 78 degrees outside instead of pushing 90. We got rain on Wednesday. It feels great. I'm just happy. I don't really mind hot weather, but like nobody wants to be in 90-degree weather all day, every day for like a whole summer type shit. So we're back. We're cool-ish. My name is Dylan Green, CineMasai. Got a lot of names, do a lot of shit outside, inside, all sides. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of newer people here from there's a lot of like Lupe runoff here. So if you're here, thanks for coming back. Everybody else, just thanks. I love y'all. Today we got somebody else who's also extra special. I'm really happy with what she has going on. She's, I'm at the intersection of music and film. She's at the intersection of music, film, and fashion. Really, really, really making the trifecta happen. With her platform Hoodwear Diaries that I've been hip to for a little while, and just watching it bloom has been great. We got Aishamanne on here from Hoodwear Diaries. You can find Hoodwear Diaries, YouTube, Instagram, everywhere. It's pretty much anywhere you can find a platform. But Aisha, thank you so much for being here. It means a lot.
Of course, thank you. It means a lot to be here. I'm excited to like nerd out.
Yeah, no, that's what this is all about, because we didn't get to meet at the event that Gang threw, but I saw all of y'all talk. That was great. I had somewhere else I had to be, or else I would have stopped by and said hey in person. But seeing all the stuff you've been doing with Hoodwear Diaries has been super cool to me. As somebody who's been into like rap and like rap film and to a lesser extent fashion for like damn near my whole life. So it's like nice to see somebody at that intersection doing something cool with it. But I'm gonna ask you the first question I ask everybody who comes on here, which is what was the last movie or TV show you watched that you had a strong opinion about?
Okay. The first one that comes to mind, I haven't finished yet because it's The Bear. Like I'm still on season 3 right now.
How are you feeling about the season so far?
So it's interesting because I had heard, like before I started watching it, I heard people saying that this season is kind of like mid in comparison to the first 2. And I was like, damn, I hope that's not the case. And then I started watching it and it felt kind of slow to me, like as the first 2 episodes. But then now I'm like, oh, it's definitely like it still has that charm of the first 2. My favorite episode that I've seen thus far is the one that Io directed. So yeah, I love that one so much. So yeah, I think visceral reactions for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think I ran through the Bear season 3 in like 2 days with my partner. We just like binged the whole thing. And like the first episode, like I appreciate it when stuff wants to get like slow and methodical and be a little artful and not have a ton of dialogue. Like this kind of reminded me, like I don't know if you watch anime, but like this season 3 premiere kind of reminded me of like a there'll be some shows that'll have like they'll start a new season or like a new arc and just have some like random shit going on, and like people will be talking about some sort of like vague event that also has like flashback clips surrounding it. Like not like not all anime does that, but I think about I think it happens like maybe like halfway through Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and that episode reminded me of stuff like that, and I was like, I don't want this from the bear. I understand that they're trying to switch things up and I want them to feel free to change things around, but like generally the season felt a little less chaotic than it usually does, and or at least early on, like it gets a bit more chaotic, and of course, like the whole thing is like Carmine trying to figure out, Carmi trying to he's just doing too much. Like he's doing way too much and like just trying to get the Michelin star, and everybody's like, this isn't working. And he's like, fuck you, I got it, but like it also started out slow for me. It got better. It's still not season 2, but I think the episode Io directed that focuses on Tina and her backstory and everything she has going on, that was amazing. I love Tina. Tina and Lionel's character's name, Marcus. Tina, Marcus, and Cousin are my 3 favorite characters on the show. So, like to me, my 2 favorite episodes of the whole series are Marcus's episode from season 2 and then Tina's from this season. So it was nice to see Tina kind of get the spotlight and for us to hear more about her. So what'd you like about the episode? I'm so curious.
So I've been waiting for like Tina's episode, like her moment since season 2. Like I think it was so nice seeing Marcus get that, and I agree it was like one of the best episodes of the series. And she's such an interesting character, and I think she also, like the way she's used in the show, she brings out some of the most interesting moments from like Carmi or from the other characters. Like every time there's an interaction, so I'm like, she needs like her moment. And so I think that episode was just created in a way that made it understandable why she was so likable. Like I think she was a likable character before we knew her, and then it showed kind of like she's relatable in so many different ways. So yeah, I love that, and I just loved the moment between her and what's his name? I always forget.
John Bernthal, right? The cop dude.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
like that I think just felt like this real. The thing I love about the bear the most is like it feels like real humanity in a way that a lot of TV shows don't really get at. So I agree with what you're saying about like that slow, methodical approach to the first couple episodes. Like this just doesn't feel like the show that I'm looking for that from. Not that it was like poorly done or whatever, but I think once it got into the groove, like Tina's episode, like real human connection, it was really good.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Like the show really rises and falls on like the chemistry and the actions of all the characters. Just like them in the kitchen, like loving on each other, yelling at each other. Like that's the dynamic everyone loves, and they moved away from that a bit more than they usually do this time. And I think that's part of the reason why it lulled a bit. I don't know if you said, but how far in did you make it? Did you just make it to Tina's?
No, so it's 10 episodes, right?
Yeah.
I think I'm on 7. Hers is 6.
Yeah, it's either 5 or 6. I can't remember anymore.
I have like 3 or 4 episodes left. Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, because I was gonna talk about some stuff that happened later, but I won't spoil it. But it ends on a. I mean, I'm not gonna say it ends on a good note, but it has a good ending. Like the ending is satisfying, but it's not like a good ending. Like in terms of like it's not gonna make you feel great. But
with the bear, I trust their endings though. Like whether it makes me feel good or bad, I feel like they know how to handle a season ending. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, definitely a cool season ending. They set some shit up for whatever the next season is. All I'm gonna say is I can't imagine how the next season won't be the last season. You'll see what I mean when you watch it, but like I can't imagine how the show isn't about to end. It's feeling very like end game to me. Like I said, you'll see what I mean.
Okay,
But
cool.
yeah.
I honestly hate when shows get to that point because it makes me so nervous. Like this could be bad. What does this mean for these characters? So, but I mean, the fact that it's been able to be so engaging for so long and still having multiple seasons, I think says a lot. So
Yeah, definitely. The only, I mean, like, I'm not from Chicago, but like people I know from Chicago and people just like talking on socials say that like the show has a, people have been saying it has like the show has a weird relationship like with the city of Chicago. Like the characters are all really well rendered, but like people from the city are just like, oh, like this doesn't feel like Chicago, or like there's certain dynamics and like certain neighborhood aspects and certain just like cultural things that the show doesn't hone in on like it could hone in on. You know, like you don't like it, you know, like, just for comparison's sake, like I remember when Atlanta was on and people, you know, like every episode comes on and somebody's like, oh, I know a person like that in Atlanta. They got this about like this section of the city. They got this about the culture. They da 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 da. You know, like there was never a period of time when Atlanta would put out an episode and people would be like, this doesn't feel like Atlanta. If it's like Atlanta centric, obviously, because it goes all over the place. But the Bear, from what I've been able to see, it doesn't have like that level of appreciation from people in the place it takes place in,
Mm-hmm.
which is like, you know, I'm once again, I'm no expert. I've been to Chicago twice in my life, so I'm no expert. But you know, I thought that was interesting. You know, as
Yeah.
somebody, yeah.
No, I was just gonna say I think Insecure comes to mind as well for like examples of shows that seems to get that right. Like I'm not from LA, obviously, but I've heard people say that like, okay, I recognize this and that, especially like the black version of what living in LA is
Right.
like. So I think it's cool when shows get that right. And I always wonder what happens, like what goes wrong when they don't get those like nuances correct culturally in the city. Even like it's funny because I've never been to Chicago, so like it looks like a real version of that to me as someone who has no
Mm-hmm.
idea, but like the people who know better. And that makes me think of New York has a lot of examples of this because there's so many
Oh
shows.
yeah.
There's so many shows set here. One that comes to mind though, especially on this like topic of hip hop, is the Wu-Tang show on Hulu. Just because that, like, as somebody who's from New York and enjoys hip hop, but is like young, so I don't know as much. And so, like, a lot of people from outside of New York like that show for, you know, being like a real feel of what it was like at that time. And then I know
Right.
people who are like New Yorkers who were around back then who are like, I don't remember us talking like this or wearing the, or, you know, or whatever. So I guess it's just interesting, like, seeing who knows the accuracy.
Yeah, I think, you know, like people they tend to get like consultants for stuff like that, for people who like, oh, like we need we need somebody from the area or like from that time period to like tell us like what's, you know, like how do people walk, how do people talk, how do people dress, you know, like yeah, I mean, like I'm sure, you know, like with the Wu-Tang show and the Bear in particular, I think there's just a like, you know, like Wu-Tang are like they're fucking like they're icons in the sense that like everybody's gonna have their own version of like what Meth and Ghost and all of them look like in their heads, and they're just gonna act to that as opposed to like getting down to the nitty gritty. But like from what I've heard, I don't think like, I mean, I don't know, but maybe but like maybe with the Bear they just didn't have people like talking to people from Chicago like that. Maybe, you know, like it's that's how it seems. You know, I don't want to make any accusations because maybe they did have a whole consulting team and maybe they just didn't do a good job. Sometimes that happens. But either way, I like the Bear, you know, like and it's crazy because I feel like people were kind of waiting for the Bear to slip up because of like, you know, like season 2 went crazy. It won all these awards. They greenlit the third season. And I think they shot seasons 3 and 4 back to back. So we are going to be getting season 4 pretty quickly. But like, you know, people, you know, like a show like that gets so much attention and wins all these awards. People are going to start looking for cracks, you know, like that's just how it goes. Like people can't handle having too much of a good thing sometimes. So, you know, like, people are just going to start hating for no reason. But, you know, it's, to me, it's definitely like the quote unquote weakest of the 3 seasons, but but they earned enough goodwill for me to be like, I'm going to watch season, you know, it's not like it was, I didn't dislike it, but it was definitely like as a whole weaker than the other 2, particularly season 2. Season 2 was just so, they were just on it. So
For sure. I think, yeah, there's like much worse TV out there. So I think I'm down for the ride with them.
yeah, easy. So yeah, now let's take it all the way back with you real quick. What's the first movie experience you can remember having? It could be at the theater, it could be at your cousin's house, like first thing that comes to mind.
Okay, I really always wish that I could remember the theater answer because I don't know, and I'm like curious about what that was. But definitely remember watching like a lot of it would have been in my grandma's house, like with cousins, just watching a lot of movies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The one comes to mind. This is gonna sound so weird. So my favorite genre of film has always been horror.
Uh-huh.
It's like usually surprising to people because as a kid is when I started getting into horror movies, and that's like apparently alarming. But I don't know. I just loved like how exciting it was to watch horror films, and I don't remember what movie it was. It might have been like The Hills Have Eyes or something like that. But
Which one? I'm sorry to cut you off. The original one from the 70s or the one that came out in like the late 2000s, I think.
Pro I was gonna say the newer one, but then again, I'm trying to remember like how old I was when I was watching it in relation to like late 2000s. But I think it would have been the newer one. But it was definitely a newer version of a horror movie, like either that or something. And
Mhm.
my cousin was watching it with me, and like my grandma was in the room as well, and like older Caribbean lady, she's not trying to pay attention to this. And then like it got to it got to a part of the movie that was like a jump scare or something. But I remember knowing that it was coming. I think that's something that I've always liked about horror is being able to like guess the build of the anticipation. And so when
Uh-huh.
the big moment comes in a horror movie, I'm always giggling. Like I'm always laughing at how scared everyone is because I'm like, I felt that that was about to happen. So I started laughing at whatever happened. And my grandma was like, what? No, actually my cousin was like, you're so weird for that. Like, what's wrong with you? And I think that was one of the early experiences that made me realize that horror was a favorite genre, and also made me realize that I really like watching movies around other people. Like it's the communal reactions and experiences that makes it cool. So yeah.
Yeah, nah, and you can have that like at home or you can have that at the theater. I like both experiences, but you know, like that but that Hills Have Eyes movie is crazy. I remember when the trailer came out, like around whatever year the movie dropped, I remember being like transfixed by the trailer, and like the poster was like there was like a bunch of empty space up top,
Mhm.
and it's like the scene in the movie where like one of the hill people is like caressing the woman's face, and it's just like a still
Yeah.
shot of that. Like the way that poster was put together was so ill to me. and
Mhm.
like and then like the trailer was like super fucking freaky, and the person who directed that movie, he also made the 2013 remake of Evil Dead that came out that was like pretty gruesome. I like that movie a lot. I'm also a pretty big horror person, if it's not clear.
Yeah,
But
I love.
yeah, like I don't know when I first started getting into horror, because I was like scared of the weirdest shit as a kid. Like there were just like certain things that would make me feel weird or
Mhm.
scared, or like and it wasn't even necessarily horror related. Like I guess I just got like way too into shit, and it would like just have me shook. I don't know. It's hard to put into words, but
Yeah. I relate to that. I think that's kind of also what I liked about it because I was really like I used to write as a kid. So I would write like short stories and novels and stuff. And so
mhm.
being bored and creative, I think horror movies gave me something to be creative with. So like afterwards I would be creeped out by the thing, but then like that feeling would be something I would use. And I was never like writing horror, but it would just like make me want to tell a story or like make me want to do something. Like I think horror movies were the ones that, when you adopt like the mood of a movie afterward, like that genre does that the most for me.
Yeah, like horror is so like it's so malleable. You can do so much with it. It's like you can make a horror drama, you can make a horror comedy, you can make you can make like a super grounded realistic horror movie, you can make like an absurdist crazy fantastical horror movie. Like you can have a horror movie about nuns, you can have a horror movie about like dolls that come to life, you can have horror movies about like the horrors of domesticity. Like you can do body horror. You like you can do I don't know, man. Like horror is just you can do stuff like Scream. You know, you
Yeah.
can just you can just do so much with it, and it can mean like horror means so many different things to so many different people. Like I was having a conversation recently with I can't remember. Oh man, it's gonna kill me that I can't remember who it was. But like like horror films might mean something different to like a black person than they might mean to a queer person. And then obviously like a black queer person, like there's going to be like an extra special caveat to that. It's like, I don't know. I've always been fascinated by it. Like, like even if it just comes down to like, I think one of the first horror movies I really like fell in love with for real was probably Freddy versus Jason. I loved Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah.
Kelly Rowland's in it, so I was like, oh, I love Kelly Rowland. Fuck it, let's watch Freddy versus Jason. And yeah, it's not like a great movie, but it's one I enjoy watching. I throw it on around Halloween season every year, just as like a fun, like this is a cute movie. I'll watch it. Fuck it. But yeah. So like, I'm sorry, you're gonna say something?
I was, but I was just gonna say no on the point about like how different things can be scary to different communities. I think that's a
Yeah.
really thing about horror, and even like when Jordan Peele comes out with his horror movies and how that's a completely
Mm-hmm.
different approach. I feel like that's another reason why watching scary movies was always fun because, like I said, like a lot of it would be funny, and I think that may be part of it too. Like as a Black person, because horror is such like a white dominated genre, a lot of
Yeah.
the that are scary to white people might be like funny to a Black person because it's just like it's pulling on different things that would provoke fear. So I feel like yeah, it's interesting to think about. There was like this interview between Michaela Cole and Daniel Kaluuya where they were talking about like their process and writing, and they asked each other about like how they write. And I think it was Michaela Cole who was saying that like in order for her to write something, she has to be scared a little bit. Like she has to put herself in the atmosphere of fear. So she has to like drive out somewhere to a cabin in the middle of the woods or like not have access to communication. And whether or not what she's writing is scary, like that fear is necessary to provoke the creativity. So I think that's so interesting because that could mean wherever you go to get scared can mean something totally different for anyone.
Yeah. And then, on top of that, like, when I think about Michaela Cole, the two things that come to mind are like chewing gum and I May Destroy You. And like I May Destroy You is like an incredibly personal for anybody who hasn't seen I May Destroy You. It's uh it's a lot. It's very, very personal. It goes a lot of pretty dark and fucked up places. It's like semi-autobiographical. It's about like a Twitter celebrity who becomes an author and gets sexually assaulted, and she kind of like has to piece together the night over the course of like the whole season of the show. And I could see how something like that would be like. I could see her putting herself in a place of fear to write something like that because like there's a lot of fear and uncertainty and anxiety that comes with that. But obviously, like compare that to a thing like chewing gum, which is, a lot more lighthearted. um, but like there's still kind of like anxious elements to it. I might be reading that process a little too literally in terms of like things that are fearful, but like that's so fascinating to me. I like that a lot. Like, just like making yourself scared will kind of push you to do things that you might not do otherwise. So I
Yeah.
can see that.
It's also interesting to think about if like how that was applied because I'm also wondering about how that process played out too, like for something like chewing gum, if
Mhm.
she was working that way when creating that, because for something so funny to come out of fear is really interesting.
Yeah, truly. And yeah, I know she's been a little quiet for the last couple of years. Since I made like on her own. She's like been in things. I think she was the last thing I saw her in was she was in the last Black Panther movie.
Yes.
She had a I wouldn't call it a bit role. I see the character she's playing has so much more going on in the books, and like the character is queer and has a whole romance. Like it's from Ta-Nehisi Coates' run on Black Panther from like 5-6 years ago, and like her character has a lot more going on in the books, and they don't really focus on that like at all. Like they pay like the barest fucking lip service to it at the very end of the movie, and it made me sad because. But anyway, um, shout out to Michaela Cole. She's dope. I like her.
Same.
Yeah. So as you get older and you start to like develop and refine your tastes further, is there a specific movie you can think of? Like I like to think of this as like a capital M movie, like a thing that's not necessarily just a piece of entertainment, but something that really connected with you in like an emotional or artistic or spiritual way. Or if it just comes down to you thinking that the shit was funny and it was that transcendent of an experience. Yeah, it's up to you, but like
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. One of them, so I started to realize, like, I went to school for film production, and journalism as well, but like I went to college to pursue this itch that I had to learn about directing. Like that was one of the things that I wanted to do, was to get access to like the tools, because I was starting to have a feeling that I wanted to do that, and then like having the tools confirm that for me. Some of the
Mm,
films that started to give me a feeling of that, the first one I'll say is Moonlight.
okay.
2016 was a year like that. I think that coming out and me seeing it was like, I loved movies and cinema and everything. But and I think Moonlight also opened me up to new, like, again, I used to watch everything, but horror was always like a favorite. But then after Moonlight, I just started becoming so curious about what other kinds of films could impact me emotionally in that way, or what other
Mm,
types of stories were told in a similar way. And I think, yeah, just seeing that was like one of the experiences that I had where I was like, I want to make something like that. Um, and so there's that one. And then Eyes Wide Shut, which I watched like at a way younger age than someone is supposed to. But I also like,
yeah.
yeah, I also had no idea what it was about. But I just knew, I think like my stepdad had put me onto it and was like, you've never seen this? And I was like, no, I'm like 13. And so we watched it. And I appreciated, like, one, like I guess having an adult to watch it with, but two, just something about that made me very interested in Stanley Kubrick from that point forward. And I just had never seen a movie do that. Like I had never seen someone make a movie like that. And I think anytime I see like things that break the rules of what I thought the form was, it like makes me want to follow that more. So those two made me be like, I've never seen people make movies in that way, and I wonder what my way of making movies would be.
Oh, that's cool as hell. So let's focus on Moonlight for a second, because Moonlight is, yeah, like that's a movie that really impacted me from the first time I watched it. And I think I've only seen it like 2 times since, but like what a like the first thing that really got me about it is like it's just gorgeous to look at, like what a beautifully shot, like rendered and just like blocked out movie, like the cinematography is amazing. I love all the colors. Like you could tell that Barry Jenkins and his crew really wanted to get at, like, a lot of filmmakers don't know how to film black skin, like, at all, and that was one of the, not one of the early, or yeah, I guess one of the earlier examples of me kind of honing in on, like, oh, this person knows how to shoot the black body. Like they know how to make black people look good, and not just like, you know, like the color grading is gonna make it look like you're like a faded shadow in the back of like a grayish pic. Like they really focused on making the skin pop, and like kind of emphasizing how, like, because like it's like it's super grounded, but it's also like very ethereal. Like it's a fucking love story that takes place over like, like 15 years or however long it is. Like I really appreciated how the look of it kind of made it feel like a story or like a fable, but like it's very much super grounded. And then you have moments when what's the main character's name? I'm blanking on his name. Not the actor, but like his
Which
Chiron.
yeah,
Chiron. So yeah, like yeah, so like in like the third act when Chiron comes back. So when he comes back to Florida, he's got his fronts in and he's like in the car and he's playing the chopped and screwed version of Classic Man by Jadena, which like that song never sounded so good. Like like the chopped, like that song should have been chopped and screwed from the jump. Like that took it to here for me. But like I don't know, man. Like that's a beautiful movie that I try to watch that like once a year, like once, like it's one of those. It's a
I
really
think
special movie.
for sure, whenever I'm feeling uninspired, like it's definitely a rewatch. I have the book, those books that A24 publishes with like, so it has the screenplay and like the foreword by Frank Ocean, I think, and some images, and it's really beautiful. But I think
Wow.
that also, like, yeah, it's one of my favorite possessions. But I think that speaks to the power of representation too, because like for someone like myself to see a film like that, because I agree that was one of the earlier like mainstream examples of Black people being like lit properly and like just treated with a camera in a way that just felt, accurate. um
Yeah.
for that to be one of the earlier films that made me want to be a director is interesting, because it's like that also made me start wondering about the cinematography. Like I remember watching a lot of videos on like the making of Moonlight and stuff, and like who made this, how was it shot, like how did they go about telling the story. Like I think when you're able to see yourself or see things that feel more familiar to you, it like opens up, at least for me, like that made me more interested in how a film is made, because I had never seen people like me in something made that way. And it's also not to say that that was the first one. Like I think
Yeah.
I hadn't seen films like Daughters of the Dust, I think, until after seeing Moonlight, and like other, you know, like it, like that being made, and it being an accurate representation in that way helps open up the past continuum of where all that came from. So
Yeah, you know, like everyone has a gateway, you know, like there's no like nothing, like nothing exists in a vacuum, but we all have our like jump off point. And for a lot of people like you and me and several others, I like there was a period of time where Moonlight was coming up like every other episode on this podcast. But yeah, like yeah, like it was definitely like an awakening and jumping off point for a lot of people. And so yeah, before we move on, because I want to ask you about music videos in particular, but I want to also hear about Eyes Wide Shut in particular, because that's a man. I mean, like it's the last Kubrick movie ever. Like there's like I still don't like I get what it's about, but like that's such a wild, like layered, fucking very long movie, you know, that's just it's about a lot of I don't even know. Talk to me about your relationship with Eyes Wide Shut. Like have you watched it recently since you saw it for the first time? Like, yeah, just break that down for me.
I think the cool thing about Kubrick films is that like I don't know of any, like at any given time, I haven't seen one recently. Like I feel like you have to like prepare for even like a watch of his stuff. Like
Yeah.
just come up in a mood like how Moonlight does. I think the other thing too is like if Moonlight opened up me discovering, you know, just more of Black cinema and more like different kinds of storytelling about Black people, I think, especially like visually too, Eyes Wide Shut opened up me being interested in films that you said, like, you know, you're still not even sure like what it's about. Like I think for a movie to end and me being like, what the hell like was that experience? That like I think that's just a genre in itself. I think that's the genre A24 is trying to like make, and
Uh-huh.
like
Yeah.
a lot of history of films like that that I would never have seen if I didn't get into something like Eyes Wide Shut. So there's that. But definitely very layered. It's interesting, like the last Kubrick film, my first film of his that I saw, and
Mhm.
the one that I understand the least. And that's cool to me. Like that's fine. Like something like The Shining, for example, there's that documentary on like the symbolism in it. I remember watching that.
Mhm.
Like there's a lot of kind of context around his other films that I think I'm interested in. Eyes Wide Shut felt very much like a poem to me. Maybe that's the description, but it felt like a poem in a way that I haven't seen films be. Like poems are very adamant about not being understood or accessible. Like it's a beauty that is like too complex to be broken down in a way that's simple, and you kind of just have to let the layers exist in front of you as they
Right.
are, and like feel the beauty from them that way. And so that's what Eyes Wide Shut feels like. I don't know if something like The Shining feels like that. I think The Shining feels like it wants you to break it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but Eyes Wide Shut is just like, what the hell? And again, the mindset that I was in at that age, like watching it, it's also like kind of inappropriate, but like in a way that I'd never seen like sex portrayed in a film in that way, to the point where what was happening didn't even feel like sex in the way that other sex scenes are used in films.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was like very mechanical. And then of course there's that incredibly famous scene of the orgy, and like that's a whole, you know, like once again, it just feels very like alien, you know, like as opposed to yeah, like and yeah, I think the word, you know, like I love that you brought up the thing about it kind of being a poem, because it does feel very impressionistic in that way. Like it's very much like it's like an abstraction of real life that kind of like I think the thing I love about Eyes Wide Shut is that it does kind of work hard to make humanity feel like it really does feel like it feels like an alien made that movie. Like it feels like some life form came down to Earth for 2 weeks and did as much like field research and hung out with as many people and did as much like reporting and like just work to figure out a species as possible, and then like I think this is what humans are, the movie, you know. That's one of the things I really appreciate about it. And you know, like on the topic of like movies that it's kind of hard to tell like either A, what it's about, or B, if you liked it. I saw the new Yorgos Lanthimos movie, Kinds of Kindness, last night, and I'm still kind of there. Like, I don't know if I liked it or not, but it was an experience I really enjoyed a lot. Like, cause like I don't know if you saw Poor Things, the one he put out with MS. Yeah, Poor Things is great. It's also like very, it's like a little, it's like trying a little more to have like a mainstream sensibility than any of his other movies. And this Kinds of Kindness feels like such a hard left turn where he's like, nope, I'm not doing that again. You know, like y'all got that one, I got my awards here. You know, like it's split into three acts, or not even three acts. Like it's three different stories that are all connected by one tertiary character who doesn't even have any lines. Yo, my fault. Sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to shout out the all-new Real Notes Patreon page real quick. If you're looking for ways to connect and directly support the podcast, the Real Notes Patreon is the best way to do so. For as little as $5 a month, you can gain early, day-before access to every forthcoming episode of Real Notes, as well as an invite to the Real Notes Discord server, where you can talk to others about the latest and greatest in movies and music, come through for some listening sessions, and talk about whatever else is on your mind. I know I'm going to be talking a bunch. If you feel like coming up off a little bit more, you could get cool exclusive content like audio from Real Notes Live and Real Talk interviews. Those will be exclusive to patrons and ticket holders moving forward. Access to retro versions of my 60-second Minute Maid movie reviews, and even a monthly writing and podcasting workshop hosted by me. Regular episodes will still be available on a weekly basis anywhere you get your podcasts, but if you want the extras, you gotta come out them pockets a bit. Check us out at patreon.com/realnotes. That's REELNOTES. I appreciate your consideration and support more than you know. Now let's get back to talking. But it's about but yeah, it's like three different stories all told with the same cast. I'm not gonna spoil it. You want to watch this movie and not know, like, it's one of those that you want to go in as cold as possible. Like, I'm happy I didn't know a lot about it going in, but you know, like I left wondering to myself, like, did I enjoy that? Like I know, like I appreciated it. I thought it was really funny, and I thought the acting was all great, and I loved how much all the actors kind of pushed themselves, and how Yorgos is just, I don't know, he's just like really good at examining like the mundanity of modern life in like the most like dryly funny and cruel way. He's like really good at that. But I don't know if I know I enjoyed it, but I don't know if I liked it, if that makes sense. You know, like it's gonna sit with me for a while, and I appreciate. It's a challenging movie, and it's also, once again, also really long. It's like just under 3 hours. It's like 2 hours 45 minutes or something crazy like that. But you know, like I appreciated how much it challenged my perception of how much I can like a movie I enjoy. I feel like that doesn't make sense, but that's kind of where I'm at.
No, I think, yeah, I love when I have that reaction to things. That's a perfect way to put it. Like, I enjoyed it, but did I like it? Because then it's like I have to decide. So now it's gonna sit with me, like you said, for like a while afterward, and then I might have to watch it again. But he's one of my favorite directors, and like everything I've ever seen by him, like I went in completely cold. So that's a great review. Like I think The Killing of a Sacred Deer was the first one that I saw, and I had no idea. So amazing. And I was like, I don't even know. The other thing too is like with a director like him, it's like, how much can you even know? Like I feel like a lot of his stuff is difficult to even explain, really. Like you kind of just have to watch it. So
yeah, because like between Killing of a Sacred Deer, I think The Lobster was the first movie of his I ever watched, and I love The Lobster. I'm a big sci-fi dude, so like that's it, it's like sci-fi in like the barest way possible. Obviously, you know, like robots and all that shit. It's just very much like, you know, like go to this place, find your partner. If you don't, you get turned into an animal. That's like such a, I love stuff like that. And the favorite was my favorite movie of the year that it came out. I can't remember what year it was. I just rewatched it like maybe like 6-7 months ago. Still incredible. Olivia Colman, Rachel Weisz, and Emma Stone. And you know, like Emma Stone, like that was the first time they worked together, and she's kind of become his muse in a way, and like they have this really cool creative partnership. It just makes me happy to see her. Like, I remember when like Superbad happened, and then like Easy A happened like
Yeah.
some years later, and how, not to say far removed she is from that stuff, but like it's really cool to see somebody as like famous in like a poppier sense as Emma Stone just be like, fuck it, I'm gonna go over here and make this super weird, out of left field, like very almost like anti-movie sensibility stuff, because like Kinds of Kindness in particular feels like an anti-movie, like it's like deliberately trying to not be liked, you know, in a lot of ways. And then like you look at like stuff like that, and she produced her company Fruit Tree produced I Saw the TV Glow, which came out earlier this year, which I thought was incredible. And that show she and Nathan Fielder had, The Curse, on Showtime, that I thought was incredible. You know, like it's just cool to see somebody as big as her just go completely off the beaten path.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, like that's pretty that's inspiring to me, that
I
like you can just, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think it shows a level of versatility too. Like if I think if she was doing stuff like what she's doing now the whole time, it would be cool. But the fact that you're like able to do both is an interesting like maturation of her career. I feel like it's what like Austin Butler is trying to do right now.
Definitely. Oh yeah, definitely. And you know, just like any opportunity I get to like put people on Yorgos Lanthimos, I'm gonna take it. You
Hmm.
know, so like she's doing a great job like putting him out there, and you know he's giving her an opportunity to do stuff that's really fucking weird and like very anti-pop, you know, like in a way. So you know, I just appreciate that, and it doesn't feel forced. Like it feels like they really kind of get each other, you know.
Exactly.
So
And it's like fully mutually beneficial. So yeah, that's cool.
yeah, 100%. So let's run to music for a second. I'm gonna ask. Why did I say I'm gonna ask? When did music become capital M music for you? Like, was there, you know, like when did it become a thing that was just kind of like passive, and then just turn into like not even so much that you wanted to like cover it or be a part of it, but like when did you first become fascinated by music?
Okay, I have two answers to this. The first one is I think I had a very musical childhood to the point where I was always confused about why I didn't want to make music. And then when I would talk to other people about music, they would think that I made it too. Like I think I always just had like a passion for it and also a fascination with people who were involved with it from a very young age. Both of my parents are Rastafarian, so like from the womb, I was just hearing like Bob Marley and Peter Tosh and like all of it like all day.
Right.
And then in a Caribbean family as well, like other types of reggae and just dancehall and soca were also played all the time. So I think just like where I'm coming from is just hearing music 24/7. And then so that also like coming from that background also made me have to kind of like seek things out as far as hip hop, because I always loved hip hop from a young age, but it was like uh being at school with friends or being with my cousins watching 106 in Park, or just like me myself going out and seeking things. Like I didn't have my parents put me on to whatever, like there were no adults
Right,
around
right,
that were listening to that. And so I think because I had to seek it out that way, I instantly became passionate about it, because like I had to research to be, you know, to know what was going on in this thing that I really loved. Not as much though when we still had things like 106 in Park that made it easy to just like find things, missed
right.
out. Anyway, so that's like one answer, is that really just like always because of how I was raised. But then to the film point as well, the first time that I actually realized like it wasn't Moonlight or like a movie. Like the first time I realized I definitely want to direct is Awaken My Love by Childish Gambino. When that
Uh-huh.
came, that was the first time. I had no idea. I always talk about how like before I knew what a treatment was, like I started writing out a treatment basically to like, so I have like, it's somewhere in my Google Docs, but it's like a treatment for a visual album. I can't remember. I think this did come out after Lemonade, so maybe it was seeing something like Lemonade that inspired that thought too. Um,
Uh-huh.
but I was listening to the songs and like getting an idea for a music video for one song, and then getting an idea for another song that was like in conversation with the visuals for the last one, and then it became like a full film. And so after seeing that written out, again, like as a kid, I was writing fiction a lot. And so at first I thought like, oh, maybe this album inspired like short stories that I'm gonna write. Or maybe this is like a novel. But then I was like, no, like when I'm hearing these songs, I'm seeing what I wrote. Like it's playing out in my head. And that's when I
Mm-hmm.
realized, hey, maybe I already have a little bit of what I need. You know, I don't have a camera yet, but I have some habit creatively that can help me direct. And I think that gave me a new fascination with both film and music.
That's so hard. I love, yeah, no, I relate to that a ton, you know, because like I would just like I would listen to music and just see videos and like images and movies and shit play in my head when that happened. And I'm happy you brought up I'm happy you brought up Awaken My Love because like that album feels extremely cinematic to me, you know, like having already been a Gambino fan from like back in his like cringy fucking like Sick Boy Poindexter era. Don't ask. You know, like that was, you know, like seeing him get to that point where he just once again, you know, like that's another like throwing caution to the wind and taking a hard left turn. You know, he basically just made a Parliament Funkadelic album, like, you know, like after having done because I think that was, yeah, because the internet was before that. And it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting you mentioned like treatments and like seeing like all the things in your head and figuring all that out because he was doing that on BTI as well. And like that was my that was that was like a major point for me because, you know, like that one came, it literally came with a screenplay, and it came with like the multimedia aspect and the website, and you had to like go through the website and find all the Easter eggs to watch all the videos. And it came with he made like a companion short film called Clapping for the Wrong Reasons. That's like 25 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like but yeah, like, but you know, like talking about Awaken My Love and or yeah, like talking about Awaken My Love and Lemonade, and you know, now since we're on the topic of Beyonce, like Black is King, which came right after and is of course, you know, very, you know, like Beyonce is somebody else who's like, you know, like especially from, I would say from the self-titled on, kind of really focused on like the multimedia aspect of all of her music. You know, like
Mhm.
I think that was kind of the mold. She created that mold from there, and then that's kind of been the blueprint for everything she's done since. It's been really fascinating to watch that develop into like the Renaissance era. But like, um, just because I'm curious, did like you know, like since we're talking about Awaken My Love, had you seen Clapping for the Wrong Reasons and all the BTI stuff, and like had that also played a role in all of that too?
So no, I think so. I liked BCI the album, and then I think I've seen it now. I don't remember if I had seen it before, like writing that stuff, but I remember Childish Gambino being someone who, like you mentioned, like the cringe era or whatever. Like I liked songs from him, but I was like, I don't know if I want to like him as a rapper, you know, like back then.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I think his music had always been like, you know, I listen to it when I'm in the mood for it, but whatever. And it's funny too, the fact that like he had been doing all of this, like the screenplay, the film around something like because the internet, and I liked it, but that didn't provoke those kinds of thoughts for me. But then something like Awaken My Love doesn't have all of that around it, but feels so cinematic, you know, like without him building out and showing us the thing. So I feel like it's interesting to think about what he may have learned from because of the internet, like building it out, showing it to us, giving it, you know, to us literally in your face. And then the next one kind of like imbued with like that filmmaking spirit or experience, but there isn't actually like an accompanying film.
Right. Like the closest they came was them premiering the cover in that episode of in the Juneteenth episode of Atlanta. Like
Mhm.
it's like I didn't realize it until after it had happened, but I went back and rewatched it, and I was like, is that the Awaken My Love like, and it makes me sad because like the woman whose face is on the cover apparently got like fucked over by either him or his label. I think she's like still owed money or something. I think she's owed royalties, or they didn't pay her properly or something, so that sucks. I don't like that. But you know, I you know, just listening to songs, like going back to like, you know, I mean like Me and Your Mama's the easy one, like that and Redbone are the two easiest ones, you know, like it's not exactly filmic, but like kind of expanding on the universe. I don't know if you remember, but there was a period of time when like people would take Redbone and like put it in like different contexts, like
Yeah.
I yeah, no, like my favorite, there was one where it's like Redbone, but it's playing at a party, or like it's like Redbone playing at a house party, but you can only hear it through the wall while somebody's like in the different room playing like Super Smash Bros. And it's just like it's extremely muffled, and you can hear like the controllers clacking on like, like it's like, but even without that stuff, just within, it's like he kind of built a universe and like built a world that felt lived in, like whether it was Redbone or Zombies or Baby Boy, which might be my favorite song on the album. I love that song. It really makes me very emotional every time I hear it. But like like I agree, there's something so filmic about it, and there's no film element tied to it in as explicitly as it was for BTI. And like he's doing Atlanta at this time, and that's really starting to take off. Like I think the album came out like just before season 2 dropped, if I remember correctly. So yeah, I agree, and it's really cool that was kind of that was one of like the major inciting incidents for you to really like dive into directing and making video stuff. And yeah, okay, so you already answered the other question I would have asked you, which was or actually no, maybe not. So when did you think that, or actually no, before we even get to that, when did the fashion stuff come into play for you?
Ooh, okay. So also always had an interest in fashion, but like growing up, that was never something I expected to like want to work in or focus on or anything, because I didn't really know about like what you could do in fashion and what the different areas of it were, or even what it would be like to study it. I just thought like, excuse the dog. I just thought like fashion meant being a fashion designer, and you would have to like know how to draw to do that. And so I never was really good at drawing and didn't want to do that. Sorry, I'm gonna like grab him real quick.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, cool. This is Shiloh.
Hey, what's up, buddy? How you feeling? Oh,
Hopefully he'll be quiet. Okay, so yeah, my interest in fashion, like I said, I didn't think that there were really a lot of options outside of design, and I was just never really interested in like visuals. And then I went to the New School for college, again, like was there for film and journalism and wanted to focus on that. But the cool thing that I was liking about journalism is that it gives you the ability to be in any space. And so I was like, what can I use journalism with to like focus on? Like, I really love music. So how cool is it that journalism gives me an excuse to just like talk about music all the time? Like, love that.
mm-hmm.
And then for fashion too, I was like, well, that's something that I'm interested in. And I think I've always been, so I was very much like a Tumblr kid, and would spend hours and hours on Tumblr, like looking at, like studying the shows. So like the models, like during fashion week, like knowing, which designers were showing and what shows were happening, and watching like videos of shows or behind the scenes of that. So that side of fashion is something that I was really interested in. And then I think being interested in fashion journalism helped me learn like the history. So like what used to happen in fashion.
Right.
And that at some point they converged. Like I'm not sure how the music and fashion things crossed, but like you put music and fashion together, in my opinion, and you get hip hop. Like, like red and blue and purple. It's just math. And so I think journalism was what really made me interested in that. And so I brought up being at the New School. Parsons is like within the university, which is like, the fashion design school. And so a lot of the people that I was friends with were doing things in fashion, whether that was fashion design or just anything else. Some of the classes that I had to take were fashion related classes too. A lot of the fashion classes that I took defined my approach to filmmaking. And so I think that just being an art form that I was able to learn more about helped me figure out like that I had always been interested in it.
Right. And so that was kind of the catalyst for all of those three things coming together. And then when did you realize that all of this was going to become more than just a hobby? You knew you wanted to do it, but when did you know it was like, oh, it's go time? Like I want to like actually do this for real.
Um, Probably like with fashion specifically.
With everything really, like yeah, like we could even get into like where Hoodwear Diaries came from and like what inspired that.
Yeah, because I think it's all kind of the same answer. I knew,
Right.
so with journalism, I had been doing it since high school and into college. And so during college, as I was like figuring out what I've always been interested in more and how I could connect journalism to that, that kind of made me want to do like the fashion journalism or music journalism thing. So that was always kind of an interest. But then like, so Hoodwear Diaries started my last semester of college. So like senior year, I'm about to like get up out of here. I'm thinking like, what do I want to be doing? We've been doing like remote learning, like the pandemic happened, like everything is just all over the place. So I'm like reconsidering things. And then also came up with Hoodwear Diaries for my capstone class for journalism. So we had to create like a capstone project that kind of was our portfolio piece for having majored in journalism. And I remember the first day of like the class for that semester, we were like doing intros or whatever, and our professor asked us like, okay, you're here, like you've been doing the journalism major. How many of you at this point want to move on after graduation to work in the journalism industry? And no one raised their hands. And everyone in the room was like a major in journalism. And so the professor was like, okay, let's unpack. And so we had to talk about like why we didn't want to work in it. And I think I was just kind of thinking about how I was much more interested in fashion and music than journalism. And I didn't know what that meant or what to do with that. But I knew that I wanted to use those two things in a capstone. And again, like I had no pre-direction for this or whatever. I just knew that like I wanted to combine them and say something about hip hop. And thinking about that, the first thought that comes to mind is like, oh, well, music from a hip hop perspective impacts fashion and kind of vice versa. But like that's something that isn't really studied a lot, especially in streetwear. Like that's kind of the arena where I felt was the most, that was made most obvious. And then once I started talking about that and doing research about that, it was instantly like, okay, this is something that's gonna follow me, because people just kind of agreed with me as far as that impact and connection goes, and also felt like it was a really important conversation. Like I was being treated like what I was doing was necessary in a way that I had never thought about my work before. So that that I want to like continue.
Wow. So Hoodwear Diary starts out as this capstone project for like everything you're doing at school. School ends, move on, start building life again. Talk to me about expanding Hoodwear Diaries and like actually starting to put that into practice and like making shit with it.
Yeah, so I was always, it's funny, the iteration of Hoodwear Diaries that we're in now kicked off this year. So the first film came out in February. It was like a Black History Month meets Valentine's Day film set to The Look of Love by Slum Village, and showing a storyline of this couple shopping or whatever, and was kind of like introducing the thought of there being a love affair, I guess, between hip hop and fashion. So all of that stuff, like that idea I had had every February since graduating school. Like I was so obsessed with just what I had created and like the conversations that were happening. And I realized that the Hoodwear Diaries, capstone project had merely like scratched the surface a little bit of all that I had to explore. But again, I like wasn't feeling journalism that much. So after college, I ended up working in advertising. So I started working in brand strategy, which is a little bit like similar but different. So I was working in like on the fashion and luxury end of that, but that's like demanding and also was giving me a lot to process as far as Hoodwear Diaries is concerned. I think like for the capstone project, one of the things that made me and everyone more passionate about it was the Supreme and True Religion collab that had dropped around that time, because, and we can like get into that, but like there were things in advertising and in the way that fashion is branded that were very relevant to the Hoodwear Diaries conversation. So to be working in advertising, like being on the back end of that, gave me a new understanding, and I think I had to like pause a little bit to even like process, and just like again having the time to do it. So I like thought on it and was doing research and stuff, and this year just kind of felt like the time to do it, especially because of that processing and research. Like for the first time since graduating, I think I had a lot more new things to say, or knew a lot of people as well that had a lot to share with this space.
Right. And that's I mean like, like having that perspective from like the advertising end, especially, I mean like anything related to Supreme and advertising is going to be like ripe for dressing down. And like I feel like people like regardless of whether or not Supreme itself is cool or in or whatever, like I think Supreme is a big enough name that everyone's at least going to be fascinated in, like, how does this work, like how did this come together, like why did they choose to do this, like just like off the top of my head, my favorite Supreme collab that ever happened is the one they did with Shrek. They did like a DreamWorks collab with Shrek. I have like I can't get it, but I have one of the beanies that has like Supreme with the S with the Shrek with the S with the Shrek ears on it.
Mhm.
Um, it's one of my favorite pieces I own. I'm not normally a huge Supreme fan, but I saw that and was like, I need to own that. But like it's but like taking that perspective and applying it to what you already had with Hoodwear Diaries, like I can see why that would be a catalyst to really push you toward like, hey, like I can, this isn't just something that has to live at school. Like I can turn this into a thing that really kind of hits at all three of these areas that I love. And like we're all about interdisciplinary arts over here. Like that's what this whole shit's about. So it's cool to see you working at that intersection of these three things. And like going through the channel, there's only a handful of videos here, but like one of the things I loved about it is like the cinema verite style of just like you kind of like leaning back and like there's like a narrative and like things being done, but like it all feels very naturalistic and just kind of like catching people like in their natural environment, for lack of a better phrase. And the first thing that caught my eye was the studio diaries you did with Dominique, who I've been a fan of for years. I love Dominique, so I saw that and was like, oh, fire, like. So just because I was curious and it's the first thing on the channel, even though like the Look of Love thing came before that, like talk to me about putting that talk to me about putting that the studio diary together, and like how you feel about it and if that's a thing you'd want to continue doing in the future.
Yes. Okay. So also love Dominique. Again, mentioned that I was like a Tumblr kid growing up. So I was like around during that era when her music and like her just, image was really popular on Tumblr.
Yeah.
And I also was like a Wattpad. I don't know if you know Wattpad, the website, but it was
No, I
like
actually don't.
it's such a niche thing that like happened, but Wattpad was this website for you could write novels and post like books on there, and it became very popular. A lot of the books, not a lot of them, but a few of the books that were on there ended up getting like developed into movies and stuff. It also got popular because it ended up being like a fan fiction hub. So
Uh-huh.
people started using like it was like I feel like my first experience with stans before like Twitter was that really because
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
were writing whole books about, like mindless behavior and like Tiger or whatever. So I remember being on there and being like, I don't want to be like a fan fiction writer, but I do like the idea of using, artists and celebrities to help you visualize characters. So they used to have a cast function. So there's like this book that I had wrote on there where the main character was casted as Dominique. So if you're reading the book on the side, you can look at who the cast is and it'll be like different celebrities. Anyway, I told her that. And that's how we like first started really talking because I'd seen her out like through mutual friends and told her that. And she thought that was so cool. And I also thought it was cool because I kind of forgot about that. And it was like when I was, in middle school. So now being older and like seeing her and being like, oh, I remember, like that being a thing was interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of was what made that Studio Diaries episode sentimental for me. But in general with music, I've always been very much into like watching YouTube videos, interviews, the process, just the context around artists has always been a thing for me. Like usually when I first am introduced to a song, an album, I'll like go into that with no context, but after that one thing, I end up like being so thirsty for information about like who this person is. Like I want to see a video you freestyling. I want to see like, things around that. And so
Yeah,
something I
yeah, yeah.
help with today's artists is how like a lot of that is lacking, where there's just not as much context around, at least especially like non-advertising focused content around
Yeah,
for fans who are genuinely curious. Like I think from even knowing certain underground artists in real life, I'm like, you're so cool. Other people who like your music should know, or other people should know how cool you are.
right.
discover your music through that. And so
Exactly.
I saw that Dominique was doing this like creative camp, and then like kind of rebuilding her sound. And I thought that was just really interesting as someone who knew her sound before, just the possibilities of where that could go. So I was genuinely interested in that and thought, I think that's how I usually make things. Like if I want to see this, maybe there's like, one or two people out there who would be interested in seeing it too. And so I went and was able to document the process of her and the other artists she was working with making music. And I think the coolest thing about it was like, it was I believe my first time being in a studio. And like the work that I'm doing now has allowed me to be in more studios since. But for someone who had never been in a studio before, I didn't know how it worked. Like I'm listening to these sounds that I enjoy, but being able to see where they come from and like the human moments that happen in between, the making of a sound or the kinds of decisions that artists make that lead to the sounds that we hear.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool. And I just think people deserve to see that. So I definitely want to. There's another episode that's going to come out today of Studio Diaries. I want to like continue documenting it because I think it's enlightening for like consumers and creators.
That's dope. Would you mind telling me who the next episode's with?
So the next episode is with an artist named Forever, from
Oh,
Jamaica.
okay, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I forgot that I published that today.
Yeah, no, yeah, because I'm looking at your page and it's right here. I haven't watched it yet, obviously, because it's only been out for an hour. But like, yeah, cool.
So that one was also, that was like a solo version. Dominique's was like her, but a group of people making music. That one is chronicling. He's a rapper and producer from Jamaica, Queens, and it was kind of taking me through. And again, having done the first one, it was also interesting to see what types of different decisions artists make in a studio. So like he was talking about why he chooses to rap into a mic versus like holding the mic versus having it on a stand and how that's different for him, or
Right.
why he wants to like record right after making a beat rather than waiting. Like I think when I learn things like that about an artist's approach, it makes me hear their music in a totally different way. So that's been the most fun part.
Yeah, same. And like thinking back to the Dominique episode, like my favorite section is where, she's talking about how she wants to explore different production methods because she thinks people see her as too aggressive. And she's just like, oh, well, like I'm just, like I'm just like this lover girl who just wants to like cuddle up and like kiss some people and shit. And like she's just like, I want that to kind of be, I want people to perceive me as that a little bit more. I don't want to, like I don't want people to see me like that, and kind of seeing her like toy around with these different types of beats. And because I mean, like once again, like being a fan of her music and knowing what it sounds like and thinking about like all the Don Dada shit, like like I understand her wanting to, like I get her wanting to explore a different side of her personality and wanting people to see that. So like that's like it reminds me of I'm not sure if you're familiar with the YouTube channel Rap Portraits, but it
Yes.
kind of yeah, no, like Yo and Holland, those are my brothers. They've been on the show. I love the two of them. Like it kind of gives me that sort of feeling. And like as somebody who loves everything you just said, like I love behind the scenes stuff. I love like lyric breakdowns. I love like I love anything that helps to like I love music related stuff, but also stuff that's not necessarily music related. With once again, that's why Real Notes exists. Like I wanted to play my part in showing artists and everybody in this like big amorphous shit we're a part of in a different light. And like you doing that through Studio Diaries is really dope. And then of course, like everything else with Hoodwear Diaries, like between like whether that's like the Look of Love short film or like this When Ghetto Meets Fashion video that's on here. And like there's just like there's so many different ways. Like Hoodwear Diaries is already starting to become a thing that's more than just you documenting trends in hip hop and fashion. Like it's like you're already at this point where you're starting to expand. And like at the event that you gang and Tim threw, you showed a bunch of other stuff you were working on that I thought was really dope. And like I guess talk to me a little bit about the future of Hoodwear Diaries and like where you want to take this, like what else you have going on, because like I saw the stuff that you were working on and showed us that may not be available to the public yet. But like talk to me about like the future and like where you want to take all of this.
Yeah, thank you so much, first of all. I think the cool thing about Hoodwear Diaries is that it's become so difficult to define, especially since evolving it since the capstone. Like it was just, at first it was a zine, a short film, and a photo series that was featured in the zine. So it's like, I can say Hoodwear Diaries is these three things that exist. Whereas now it's like so many different things in so many different ways, but it all exists at this intersection between music and fashion. And so I think I'm personally like excited to see where that goes, because whatever happens at that intersection, which is really whatever happens in hip hop culture too, is like unpredictable. I think that's the beauty of kind of why I'm documenting it, because we're not even able to appreciate, I think, the waves that happen in this space until after, like looking back at them. And
Yeah.
so whatever Hoodwear Diaries will become is defined by like whatever's on the way, which who knows. So that's one part of it. The other thing, as far as like the future of Hoodwear Diaries, I think Hoodwear Diaries as a project is very much for the future, which can be interesting to say to people because so much of the work looks and feels kind of like old school, or at least inspired by that, which it is. But like, so one of the things I'm working on is a zine, which will hopefully come out sometime end of this summer. But another issue of the original zine that had came out with like just new stories and approaches about streetwear and hip hop. One of the things that I'm working on for that zine is like a hip hop time capsule, which I don't want to talk about too much yet, not because it's like not open to the public, but because I'm really still figuring it out. But the idea of it, I think why I like that project so much is because Hoodwear Diaries itself is kind of a time capsule. Like my personal reason, at least, for creating it, I'm always
Right.
thinking of really, I just think what's happening right now is really cool, and in a way that isn't being contextualized by like mainstream culture or commercial fashion. And that context should be preserved for the people who are going to find out that it's really cool. Because that's the thing about like the hood or the things that the streets create, is that you don't really need that validate. You don't need it at all. Any like external validation. The mainstream doesn't need to get it. I'm pointing out the fact that they don't get it, because I think that decontextualization of real history and real communities matters. But whether or not like the world gets what's happening in the streets, it will live on for the future in a way that will be impactful. That's what hip hop is. And
Right.
so Hoodwear Diaries can look at and marry together what's happening at these intersections, so that when we get there, when we're at the next 50 of hip hop, it's like there's things to look back on in a context that we own, rather than whatever context it will be forced into 50 years from now. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the purpose. That's what makes it, what I said earlier about the work feeling necessary. Like once I started to think about it as being for the future, it just felt like automatic, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, and like people are just gonna jack what's going on in the streets anyway. Like that's just like like that's always how it goes. Like like the shit will pop in like the shit will pop like 6 months before everybody gets hip to it, and then it'll get run into the ground in 2 weeks. And then it's like, damn, like but like that's always weird to me because like these things have context and meaning outside of the external validation of the mainstream or white people or whatever the fuck. And I think it's really important what you said about, I mean, like, first of all, the idea of contextualizing this stuff in a way that comes from us, from like people who understand it and live it, as opposed to being recontextualized in 50 or even 10 or 5 years from now, like by people who just like don't understand. Like going back to the Wu-Tang example of people like making Wu-Tang an American Saga, and then having people who were there be like, that's not how that happened, that's not what we were wearing, that's not what we were talking, like that's like it's important that stuff like that gets right, because like especially when like that's one of the reasons why I'm so fascinated by film, because like it shapes public perception, it shapes opinions of time periods, it shapes opinions of like that's history, like especially when it's biographical, like whether it's a Wu-Tang thing or like just because it came to my head, Oppenheimer, like people who would never read the book that movie's based on are going to be using that as the text of like, oh, this is Oppenheimer, this is what he was on with making the bomb or whatever. Or like like they'll look at Dave East portraying Method Man on the Wu-Tang show and be like, oh, this is what Method Man was like. Or I forget, Joey Badass is who, Master Killer? Or did I fuck that up?
I don't want to fuck it up. I was gonna say I think so too, but I wouldn't know. So.
I'm a double check real quick just so I can make sure. I think he was Inspector Deck. My fault. He wasn't Master Killer. Yeah, he was Inspector Deck, and he left the show after a while. But anyway, but like to certain people, like they're not gonna go watch the like they might watch the Wu-Tang Hulu show where Joey Badass is Inspector Deck before they'd watch the Showtime documentary explaining the whole saga. Like more often than not. And like particularly when it comes to the intersection of like that type of coverage and like new platforms being birthed to really bring like between like the stuff you got going on, the stuff I got going on, like there's so many blogs and zines and people have ideas that are just like popping up as like ways to like document culture currently and like stuff that's gonna like the internet isn't forever, but it is a mighty long time. That's kind of how I'm looking at it these days. And like that stuff, as long as like the internet archive people don't come and try to take it out, like it's gonna be there. And it's so important that stuff that isn't corporate minded like this exists, because it is like this is like the raw unfiltered shit that people are living. And that's what really got me about the stuff you were showing at the PTP event like a month or so back. Like like you're talking to people and getting these like answers in real time and just setting it to footage. And it's like a mood piece, but like people are hearing these answers and watching the fashion happen in front of them. And that's why like that blend of cinema verite with this like documentary style, like like question answer type shit is like it's just really cool to me. And it's a nice extension of what like a project like Nobels is doing, like my man Mono over at Nobels, or like what Annabelle Klein does with That Good Shit, or what Tal, or what my man Tal does over at Soundfind. Like these like this is an extension of that goes beyond like, here's some music I like, or here's a show. Like this is like, here we are going out here finding all the like this is like it's all feeding off each other, and I think it's dope. I feel like I'm rambling, I'm sorry.
No, thank you for that. I think, yeah, what you said about the Wu-Tang show and how like there are people who will watch that show but not read the book. I think that explains Hoodwear Diaries too, and like why it's so many different things and comes in so many different forms, because that's why there will be like a short film that's pulling archival footage that's about music videos, and you're listening to people talking about that. But then Hoodwear Diaries also creates music videos, and there's also
Right.
like something like Studio Diaries, but then there's like a short like conceptual film on Super 8 that like approaches a similar topic in a different way. Like I think another thing I'm realizing about this being for the future is that who knows like what the format of the future even is. And that, like you said, that doesn't have to be 50 years from now, that could be 10, 5, like things just move in different ways. But even right now, there's like different access points, I think, for how people engage with things. Hoodwear Diaries very much could have been like a dissertation, and still could be, but I don't want it to be engaged only by people in like an echo chamber of things, because I think that's just kind of contradictory to what the project is. So I appreciate the fact that you like see those different forms.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, like this project is still very much in its early stages. Like there's only a handful of videos on the YouTube page, but like like you've been building it out on IG for a little while, and like like you're turning it like stuff that's archival of the present is extremely important, because like there's so many. It's good, like not just in the sense that it's going to make stuff easier for people in the future to look back on. Like say somebody wants to do a piece, or like say somebody's fascinated in the relationship between like like Timu and like its relation to fast fashion,
Yeah.
or what's the other one I always forget? Not Zara. God damn it. I'm trying to remember like the why am I forgetting that? Shein. There we
Yeah,
go. Yeah, yeah, you know, you know, like Shein and like its relationship to fast fashion, and like how, you know, like I saw like some joke going around of somebody just like, yeah, like when it rains and all the you know, like all your Shein stuff starts to melt because of like the vinyl, you know, like stuff like that, you know, like it's gonna do a lot of service to a lot of people in the future to have as much context as they can from people who actually lived it at that time to
yeah.
really dig into it. And you know, like I know that's something that came up in the I'm in the conversation in Q&A after everything that happened, which I appreciated a lot because like, yeah, you know, like fast fashion and like environmentally um ethical fashion choices are things that we need to be talking about more.
Yeah.
But you know, like just but like even just this like phase one starting of Hoodwear Diaries, and like you even taking the initiative to be like, I want to document this stuff in this way. Like nobody's talking about this intersection the way not even just the way you are, but like period, really. Like, you know, like in this particular way, you know, like, you can go on TikTok and find a million and one people talking about like their favorite like early 2000s rap outfits, and like, but like there aren't people really digging into that, like you said, like behind the scenes stuff in a way that isn't like Sprite presents, here's what Vince Staple, you know, like, and that's cool, that's fine. I'm not shitting on it, but you know, like it's gonna be different from something like watching Dominique try to rearrange her public perception in real time, or watching Jid buy a house on Rap Portraits. You know, like that's the stuff that's most fascinating to me, and I'm glad to hear it is for you. And you know, like it takes a lot to want to, you know, like become the change you want to see in the world, and it's cool to see you starting it and really starting to like build it out.
Thank you. Yeah, I think something that I talk about often is like a lot of the ethos behind my work is just like at the root of it, wanting things to be cool. Like even what you said about Beyonce and like just the visuals and everything, the world that she's been building around her music since self-titled, that has now become the standard. Like I think the art world, I don't like the term art world, but just like the stuff that was coming out that I was able to see from like the 90s through early 2000s as a kid was very, very cool to me. And so how you're saying it's like cooler to see stuff like that and like Rap Portraits than like the, you know, the other stuff that's more corporate. I think the more people are the change we want to see, the more other people are inspired to do that and create things like that. So I really want to be the change that hopefully everyone wants to be, and I'm just as much excited to see where Hoodwear Diaries goes as everybody else too. So.
Right. Yeah, no, and like you're doing the work. So, you know, shots to that. And before we formally wrap this up, I said I wanted to talk about videos earlier, and you know, you were talking about like 90s and 2000s shit. So, like, not to put you on the spot, but you know, like what are some of your favorite music videos that you can think of?
Okay. Remember the Time is my favorite music video of all time, Michael Jackson.
Easy choice. Yeah, I get it.
You know, it's super obvious choice, but very deserved. Like that
Yeah.
for sure just changed. And I also was very into like just like I don't know, like the looks of like Egyptian, like I don't know, it was just very cool to me as a kid. So
Mhm.
there's that. And also Erica Badu's music videos I always loved. Um, I think maybe Other Side of the Game, which, and it's interesting because Hoodwear Diaries talks about hip hop, but like R&B is very much part of that conversation too. And then
Easy.
Andre 3000 is in that video as well. And I just think I loved how normal she's like moving around her apartment with him. And like my mom has really long locks and she has her head wrap like tied up. And she always reminds me of my mom in that video. And I just think it feels very, it's funny, the two of them, like Remember the Time is this fantastical thing. And then something like Other Side of the Game, it's just like more humble in a sense, but both gorgeous. And I don't have a Busta Rhymes video, but I just think he needs to be named in the conversation as far as yeah.
Yeah. Easy, you know, like you could pick any of those. You could pick Put Your Hands in My Eyes Could See. You could fucking pick, like yeah, like when you and I talked like last week, like I think I mentioned Give Me Some More, and like that's always going to be the one I go back to before any of them. But yeah, I mean, I mentioned this on another episode before, but I had that Michael Jackson history DVD that had like all of his biggest videos on it. And remember, you know, like Black and White's on there. Remember the Times on there. Thriller, of course, is on there. The Way You Make Me Feel, you know, like those videos meant a lot to me growing up. And then Remember the Time one was one that I always, you know, like it's like it's star studded. Like Eddie Murphy's in it, Magic Johnson's in it. The woman who plays Cleopatra, whoever she's supposed to be. I forget her fucking name. I'm so mad about it. Sorry,
Was
what?
that Iman?
It was Iman. Yes, thank you. Yeah, it was Iman. So yeah, you know, like Iman's in it, Eddie Murphy's in it, Magic Johnson's in it, and like yeah, it's like really fantastical, but also like silly and like dumb sometimes. It's like I don't know, like that's like there was a period of time where that was like the platonic ideal for like that type of music video, and going to Badu. I think the first Badu video I ever saw was I think it was the window seat video. That was the first Badu video I ever saw. The one
Yeah.
where she's in Texas and she strips naked and the video ends with her faking the gunshot. And
Mm.
like my mom lives in Texas, and the first time I ever went to the grassy knoll, you know, like most people think about it in the context of the Kennedy assassination. I'm thinking about it as like, oh, Erica Badu shot the window seat video. You know, like I was like, that's crazy. Like she was right. You know, like I have both those things in my head at that time. But yeah, I mean, like you know, we talked about this a bunch, but like music videos are so integral to like like not only is it like this convergence of music and film and fashion, but it's just like that like music videos give us another view and another perspective on a video on a song versus what we might conjure in our heads. And you know, like we could sit here and talk about music videos all day, but I know we both don't have the time for that. um but to formally wrap this up, if your life was a movie, what would it be about?
Oh my gosh, I wish someone would tell me. Um, I think if my life was a movie, there's always a movie in my head too. Like there's always something I'm working on. So I feel like my answer to this question will always depend on that.
That's
Um,
fun.
yeah, yeah, maybe I think that's an answer, but I think if I had to pick right now, it would be about uh someone doing some form of manifesting that's the least corny you can think of, like not like, you know, like not to be woo woo or whatever, but I think even there's a form of like the cultural work that Hoodwear Diaries is, that is a form of manifestation, because the more we document things in the context that feels good to us and that we own, the more we're able to impact like the next wave of culture that comes in. And so it's like being the change you want to see now and in the future too. I think
Mhm.
that feels like manifesting. I don't know what the movie would be about, like how someone does that. Maybe there's a superpower, but yeah,
That's cool. Yeah, no, like just kind of being like, you know, kind of like turning yourself into like a human time capsule, you
yeah,
know, like you know, like that's you know, like wanting to establish something for not just you but for like a particular like cultural pocket is like that's cool. You know, I'm into that. I don't once it, you know, like you said, I don't know how it will be made, but you know, like that's just like I think that's an aspirational thing to want, you know.
yeah.
So
I think the cool thing about that too is it could be made in a lot of different ways. Like I see that in so much of, I'm always talking about the low lives. I see that
yeah.
even in like just the ways that we take things that aren't meant for us and create new things. I think Black people can relate to that a lot. So a lot
Mhm.
of Black stories and Black movies, I think, are that same movie, really.
Man, the low lives, man. That's such a good grab. I love that. Damn. Oh man, Aishamanne, thank you so much. This was such an enlightening convo, and yeah, like I don't need to say it, but yeah, like Hoodwear Diaries is super dope. I'm really happy to see you like expanding it and like working on live stuff and really like coming at it from all these different angles. And like once again, like you know, like as somebody who's also incredibly interdisciplinary, like I always like look for stuff like that, and it's not always easy to find in a way that feels like very like grounded and like very sure of its identity. especially like this early on. So, like you, I'm excited to see where it goes, and just like, thanks for your time, and like your work already. So
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. As I mentioned to you, I feel like Real Notes is very much like if there was an AI that knew me and had to like produce a podcast that I would enjoy, it would be this. So thank you again.
Oh, that's hard. I appreciate that so much. Yeah, it's like, once again, this is kind of like just all me over here. So that means, yeah, like that goes double. So yeah, nah, thank you. Thanks for listening. Shout out to y'all for making it this far. And shout out to all the Black people listening too, because y'all really impeccable. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell a friend to come through next time. 1.